Every so often, tattooers will come along and they'll change the game. Bob Roberts just happens to be one of those guys. From joining forces with Ed Hardy to Bob and Leo Zaletta creating a punk rock tribal scene, Bob Roberts remained a fixture and legend in the Los Angeles tattoo community for over 40 years.
It's not so much how much detail and how many lines and how many colors you can pack into something, but it's what you're saying with a piece.
Born March 9th, 1946 in Los Angeles, California. His parents owned a store on 8th and Broadway. That neighborhood at the time had a lot of tattoo shops. Now Bob would sneak away from the store whenever he could to try to go ahead and take a peek inside these tattoo shops and, maybe even venture inside when he could. He loved seeing all the different shops and the different tattoos. He was instantly hooked. As he got older, Bob would start to play in rock and roll bands. Roberts was not only a tattoo artist, but he was a painter and a professional musician as well. He was an accomplished saxophone player that shared the stage with a multitude of different bands, from the New York Dolls, Hot Tuna, Reuben and the Jets, The Offs, Johnny Thunders, and more. He would often paint tattoo flash in his downtime. Bob actually started to look for a second job to make up money between gigs, and he thought he would be a pretty damn good tattooer. He just wasn't sure how to break into the business. He would often go into different shops and ask them how they could get machines and ink, with them basically telling him, hey, fuck off. By chance, in 1973, he ran into a friend whose girlfriend happened to be a tattoo artist. She wound up actually selling him a machine, some flash, and a power supply, and that's how he got started. Roberts would get his first 3 shop tattoos at Burt Grimm's by Bob Shaw. While getting one of his tattoos from Bob, he actually mentioned to him that he wanted to be a tattoo artist. Bob Shaw would say, hey, bring down some of the, paintings and flash that you've done. And then Bob would go ahead and get tattooed by Bob Shaw. Now, after asking Bob Shaw a couple of different times about getting into the business, Bob basically told him, hey, you bring down a bunch of friends, they let you tattoo them, we'll talk about it. Well, Roberts was a musician. He didn't have a hard time scrounging up a couple guys to get free tattoos, that's for sure. Bob Shaw finally let Roberts do an apprenticeship under him and Colonel Todd, and that's where his career started to skyrocket. After spending 4 years working side by side with Bob Shaw's son Bobby, Roberts would go ahead and take a small little hiatus. He would eventually get drawn back into the tattooing thing by Cliff Raven, who he wound up taking a job off of up at Sunset Tattoos in West Hollywood. Now, Bob had already started to tinker around with some Japanese style of tattooing, but he really wanted to learn the correct way and to really learn from a master. Roberts at the time thought, who better to learn from than Ed Hardy? Now, during this time when he was working with Ed Hardy, they actually wound up taking a road trip to LA to meet up with Good Time Charlie and Jack Rudy, who they had met at a convention a year earlier. Both Bob and Ed wanted to get one of those nice fine line tattoos that Good Time Charlie and Jack had been doing. They were both fascinated with the fine line black and gray work. Bob and Ed would join forces and open up Tattoo City, which would solely focus on the single needle fine line black and gray work that they so admired. Now, Bob and Ed would work together for about 4 years before Bob decided, you know what, I'm going to pack up and go ahead and move to New York City. Even though New York City was under a tattoo ban at the time, Bob would open up his first version of Spotlight Tattoo. Bob rented this loft, and he would live on one side, and the other side was set up as a tattoo studio. Now, Bob's landlord would wind up actually selling the building while he was in it, and Bob couldn't afford the crazy prices for New York City rent at the time. So he basically decided to just pack up and move back to the West Coast. He said he was kind of burnt out from New York City at the time anyway. If you like tattoo history and you're digging this episode, and you feel like it's bringing some value to you, please make sure you smash that like and subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything, and it helps out the channel. We can't do this without you guys. Bob gets back to the West Coast, and he opens up what would be, I guess, the second version of Spotlight Tattoo on Melrose Ave in Los Angeles. Now, this second version was actually set up in a garage. After 9 years, Bob would actually move next door and set up shop and open up Spotlight Tattoo, which is where it still remains to this day. It's currently being run by Bob's son, Charlie. During his 40-plus years of tattooing, he had thousands upon thousands of different clients, from famous musicians like The Clash to the average Joe that just wanted a good tattoo. To Bob, none of that mattered. Bob always said that he wasn't just an artist, he was actually in the service industry. Bob has often been cited as saying, the most important thing is the person getting the tattoo, not me. He's been quoted as saying, if I want to be a tattoo artist and nobody's getting a tattoo from me, I'm not a tattoo artist. So the future and where things are going, the approach, is not up to us, man. It's secondary. You see, Bob was taught the old school traditions, and he didn't really agree with how things were changing at the time. He may have came off as a crotchety old man at times. In reality, he just understood how it used to be and what tattooing was really about in the beginning. You see, when he was broken in, he had mentors that were leery about giving away any secrets. There were no custom pieces. If it wasn't on the wall, you weren't getting a tattoo. The old timers saw it as money walking out the door while you sat there and drew up a custom piece. While he was at the Pike, he would talk about tattooing 15 people a night, 5 days a week. They would do all the, typical biker stuff, Eagles, Harley Wings, the little hot stuffed devils. There was no need to add all these little extra details because, to him, that's not what tattooing was about. It was about getting a tattoo, the experience, not a masterpiece. Because of how Bob got his start, he's very well known for his American traditional style of tattooing, along with the iconography of the biker lifestyle that was relevant at the time. Bob would make numerous trips across the United States on his Harley, and he really embraced the biker lifestyle. His paintings wound up being renowned. He would get inspiration from a bunch of different sources, basically creating his own style. When I think about old school badass tattooers, I think about Bob Roberts. He told it like it was, he had an amazing talent, and he truly understood what tattooing was about. Unfortunately, on May 26th of 2022, Bob Roberts passes away, and the impact of him passing echoed throughout the tattoo community. He will never be forgotten, and he'll go down as a legend of American traditional tattooing styles. Hey, if you like this video and you want to see some more history, go ahead and click on this link right here.